let's bring up our hosts. I'll introduce to some and present to many who are here today. Abdul Hakim, our host of the Spiritual Injection. He is here. Thank you, sir, and welcome.
And thank you, and warm welcome to everybody who has joined us this Thursday evening. Thank you, Sister Tara, all the way from the UAE, and thank you, Sister Sabina, our co-host. And amazingly, thank you again, Dr. Akili, for being with us this wonderful Thursday to discuss this very important subject matter that's really raising people off the planet at unprecedented numbers in regards to cardiovascular related illnesses. So without any furthering, our people have come on to hear you today. So please, let's have an overview, Dr. Akili, of what our current position is, what we should be doing. And please, let our audience know what you think they should know at this time. Again, warm welcome to Spiritual Injection. Dr. Akili, everybody take your devices off mute and receive him with love and appreciation.
Well, thank you.
Welcome.
Welcome.
You're welcome.
Peace and blessings to everyone. Thank you for coming. It's a wonderful blessing and an honor to be in this seat to, inshallah, give you some news that you can use and some evidence of the hard work that it's going to take us to have good health. I just want to get us and our minds intact with what I'm about to show and explain. We are discussing the number one, I'll use the word killer of people all over the planet. And I use that terminology because as I make some explanations today, I want us all to take our minds and connect with nature and realize that animals in nature that follow their nature don't have heart disease. So that's why I use the word killer, or I could use the word murderer, because when we take on the mind state of an enemy of God, then the results are not just mistakes. The results are not circumstantial. The results make sense when you look at things scientifically in America and all other countries around the world that aren't following their natural nature foods. They're following what the enemy has suggested are good lifestyle ideas that have never been based in science, and we're wondering why we're dying at such numbers. It's because we have incorrect and false information. So let me show some pictures if you all don't mind, and
yes, please. Let's
look at some of these ideas so we can get a visual as I am speaking, and I think that will help us understand a lot better.
Yeah.
So let's look at this first. Can everybody see that well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's pretty obvious that the one at the top is normal and the one at the bottom is clogged. So for all intents and purposes, as a young baby that's being born and probably many, many years in a child's youth, their arteries look like this. As we begin to eat the types of foods that are not in conjunction with the health of the body, we start producing plaques. And so when we're talking about the cholesterol, when you go to a typical doctor and they do a blood test and they say your cholesterol is high, well, we have to put that in the proper context, because this artery within itself, or if we look at it ourselves on the screen, or you looked at yourself in the mirror today, it took cholesterol to build your skin. It takes cholesterol to build certain structures in the body. It is a fundamental molecule to build tissues all over the body. So we cannot live without cholesterol. The problem is that many of us are getting cholesterol that is not associated with nature. We're eating cholesterol or foods that have cholesterol in them that were made in a laboratory, or that were made in some type of chemical process that is not in congruence with the body. And so I want to say it in that manner, because this, what we're looking at the bottom, is not normal. And it doesn't happen in people who are following nature in the way that we were made to take care of these bodies. So let's look at just another picture of this from a different perspective. And here you see, again, on the left, we're talking normal. On the right, we have plaque buildup, where you have what we call here is laminar flow. Laminar just means that it's in ranks, right? Just like we watch people, you watch an army, right? And they get in ranks, and you can walk behind them and you can see rows. You walk next to them and you see columns. Well, that's the way the blood flows in our blood vessels. Very organized, very specific. Laminar flow means everything that is where it needs to be. Well, this obviously is interrupting that laminar flow. And so if this is, just for sake of conversation, consider that this is the side where the heart is, and this is the side over here where either the end organ or the tissues where they're receiving the blood. So whatever is right here is getting less blood, is getting blood flow that is erratic once it comes through this plaque. Okay. And then one more picture. This is just a little more of the same reality. So again, we're talking, the heart is going to be on this side, and whatever is asking for blood and receiving blood is on this side, right? So at the top, a person is going to be in good shape. That organ is going to be getting the nutrients, right? Because this blood flow, what we're looking at, these little red blood cells, that would be what is bringing oxygen to the organ or the tissue. But also intertwined in these cells will be other proteinaceous molecules that are bringing nutrition. You just finished eating. You broke down the food. You absorbed what was in the food that was good for you. That's not going into some ethereal way. You have molecules that pick that nutrient up and say, the liver may be calling for some today, right? The kidney might be calling for something. The heart itself has to call for some nutrients to keep it alive. And so nutrients and blood and the white blood cells that are making sure infection is not in there, all of that is going wherever the organs are calling for them. So at the top one, doing pretty good, getting what you need. Food is being delivered. I'm sorry, the nutrients of the food is being delivered, right? We look at the second one, we're talking about somebody that is starving, right? The organs are calling, but they're not getting food. So it's similar to, I would say, what used to be the homeless situation, right? Used to be that homeless people would be asking for food because they're hungry. These days, there's so many people feeding them, you know, I'm not going to get off subject, but I just want to make that point that this right here would be like a person sometimes when we go in America or anywhere in the world where there are people that don't have proper nutrition and they're starving. The organs of a person's body in this situation are starving. And then down here, we're talking about what Brother Tariq, who was with you all last week, I believe, his post yesterday about cardiac arrest versus myocardial infarction. So this situation here is beyond starvation. This is destruction now. This is what's happening in a heart attack. The blood flow, what happens? It's totally cut off. So whatever is at the end of this blood vessel is now not receiving oxygen, not receiving nutrition, not receiving any and all of the things that blood and the plasma is supposed to take to that tissue or that organ. And so when we're specifically talking about heart, which is our subject today, we're talking about a myocardial infarction, which is what? That is when you have a person who now starts to get damaged specifically. I'm trying to share this again. So now we're talking about a person. Let's look at the left for a minute. I don't want you all to pay attention to the right yet. I'll pay attention to the left, please. So now here it is that the heart is pumping blood, right? We're pumping it out to the body through the aorta. So this is where it's going up to the brain, up to the head, and this is going down to the rest of the body. This is where the blood comes back in after we've used it, after we have waste material. The oxygen is gone now, there's carbon dioxide in it. It's coming back into the heart, going into the atrium, going to the ventricle, going up into the lungs so they can get refreshed, get that oxygen in it, right? And now it's going to go back and continue this cycle. So the heart is beating, boom, 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 boom. When the heart actually beats, that's when it's pushing. When it's relaxing, that's when the blood is being returned to it from the body. But that's also the quick, sometimes millisecond, or maybe not a millisecond, because that's pretty small, but whatever that time frame is, when that heart is relaxed, that's when the blood flow goes to the heart muscle. So that's when the heart is receiving that nutrition, that oxygen, all of those molecules that we finish breaking down when we're eating, right? So if we just think back to that other picture where that where that blood vessel was clogged, and now this section of the heart right here is not getting blood flow. So you get a myocardial infarction. Myo, muscle, cardio of the heart, infarction, which is what? Lack of blood flow to a particular area, and now this area starts to die. So a myocardial infarction, a heart attack, is a specific section of the heart that is not receiving blood, and you start getting pain. You start having certain symptoms of a heart attack. What happens in a cardiac arrest with some of these people that have taken this jab, you have myocarditis. What is myocarditis? Myo, muscle, carditis, inflammation of the cardio muscle. So it can be sometimes encompassing the whole heart. This can also happen in a heart attack. You can affect the heart where the whole thing is inflamed. But what happens in a person with myocarditis is you interfere with the signals. We have two major signal senders of the heart that keep it pumping. You have the sinoatrial node and the atrioventricular node. I'm not interested in you all knowing all that. Just try to understand my point, that when your heart is highly inflamed, it interferes with those signals being pushed throughout the heart, and the heart can shut down. That's a cardiac arrest. That is what happened to Bronny, LeBron James' son. His heart stopped, and they had to do CPR, revive him, and get him to the hospital so they could do the things to try to support the heart so that it could get back to a place of normal functioning. My understanding is that he is out of the ICU now. He's in a regular room. He has become more stable, and that is a blessing, because the majority of people that wind up where he was do not make it. 50% of people that have a heart attack do not survive. As people continue to have heart attacks, that number increases. I believe second heart attack, it's like 68%. Third heart attack, I think it's almost 80. And so as we watch people continue to suffer, like I said before, from this killer disease, the chances of you living, if you don't change your habits and do things that will replace the natural beauty of that heart and how it keeps us alive, your chances get worse and worse as you continue to go down. And let me lastly say, I forgot to say this part. When we look at this picture again, to the right where it says congested heart, that is a heart that has been weakened by years and years and years of lack of nutrition, lack of enough oxygen, lack of being able to heal itself. So this is a heart, as you see, the ventricles are bigger. The heart muscle is thinner, as you can see here. So this is a weak heart. This is a heart that is in trouble. You are not going to be able to do physically what you used to be able to do. But one of the beautiful things that sisters were talking about when we opened up is the heart is associated with your mental health. Why is that? Because we have what we call a vagus nerve that comes from the brain, and it's attached to the heart. And that's why sometimes you could be sitting and just start thinking of something and feel your heart beat faster. Sometimes you can go to a movie. This is a make-believe reality, and they'll have your heart jumping out of your chest just by what's going in your mind. So your mind is highly tied to probably the most important organ outside of the brain. And we can prove that with science. How? When a young embryo is being produced in a mother, the first organ that is being produced is the brain. The second organ is the heart. Allah doesn't do things outside of complete, total science and complete logic. So it makes sense that these two organs would be connected, and it makes sense that if your heart starts to deteriorate, your mental health can't be at its best. So I pray that that introduction helps us understand a little more about what we're going to discuss after these beautiful questions come.
Wonderful.
Thank you again.
Wonderful. If I'd be allowed to just bully my way in to co-host and just start the conversation with you, Dr. Akili.
Yes, sir.
We've heard all of the symptoms and we've seen the problems, but would you recommend for two questions? Let me segue into my second question with the first question. Why are we as a people so non-scientific when it comes to our health?
Well, I believe that that is a result of the knowledge that we have and the source of our knowledge. You know, many times when I think about some of the things that I just finished saying and other things that I talk about on a basis level, that should be something that's taught in elementary school all around the world. A child should grow up understanding their body, knowing how to take care of their body from a basic perspective. But, you know, the enemies of God made money more important than anything else. And so their whole system, in Brother Akili's humble viewpoint, is to keep us from understanding how to take care of things that feed their systems. Let me give an example. I tell people all the time in America, right? I've never lived anywhere else, so I can't speak knowledgeably about other countries, but I do know in America, Black people are the foundation of alcohol companies. Black people are the foundation of cigarette companies in this country to some degree, not all. But we are the main people that buy, lotto tickets. We're the main people that are filling the jail cells. So when it comes to financial ability, if we were to change our ways, we would murder the ability of billionaires before the end of the year.
Right.
You know, so the information that we've gotten, I believe, all over the world has changed us from being people that had a purpose and a mission and a vision in life. And we're doing things based on money, and especially those that are in control, it's all about money. And so we don't have the foundational information, I would say, to keep ourselves focused on the things that make sense, focused on the things that would fulfill us. And so anything will go. You know, these days on social media, you have some people that sound good, millions of viewers, millions of hits on their posts. But I sit back and I listen to them and I'm like, wow, there was some good information, but a lot of it was mixed up in some garbage. And so when you put all that together, you can't change your life.
Yeah.
Because the information is impotent.
Right.
And until we understand that God being the author of these bodies, and like I said, there's plenty examples out in nature if we pay attention, like our ancestors did, right? Quick story. My grandmother made it to 110.
Wow.
All of my uncles and my aunts that are her children are sick as hell. My grandmother told me that she was 49 years young before she ever shopped in a grocery store. So all of her life, she and her family and the neighbors had gardens, had their own animals, and they would share. Of course, she was born in 1905. So for many years in her life, they didn't have any other options. But as the options started to become real, that you could go into the white neighborhood, or you could go into a grocery store, you could go to a doctor's office, our health has completely deteriorated as we've had more opportunities to go into these realities. And she always used to tell a story about her mother, who was an educator. There were 5 children in the area that my grandmother was growing up in that were sick. And there was a doctor that came into the neighborhood. He was a Caucasian doctor, gave all of them advice. The 4 people that followed his advice, and my great grandmother, who didn't follow his advice, she went out to the countryside, into the jungle, not the jungle, to the forest in Mississippi, and started gathering certain plants. Made a bath, put my grandmother in the bath. My grandmother was the only child of the 5 that lived. And so I just use that example not to say anything other than the fact that when we paid attention to our connection to nature, we did much better than following the information that is never proven that it scientifically will help us.
What's the
Did I answer the question, my brother?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So I'm trying to think, because the way how we're generally wired is, if there's something wrong, it will get better by itself. And most of us are taken to the hospital or taken to the doctors, as opposed to having the good sense to say, I need to make an appointment immediately. Because when we're hungry, we say, I need food, and we go directly to where the food source is to get food, right? But
Yes,
when
sir.
it comes to our health, we are so slow in making the requisite appointments to ensure that, am I okay? Am I 100% okay? So the psychological damage, it seems, that has been done to us, and the way how we process the most important aspect of existence, which is good health, right? I'm really, before I go into anything else, I'm really worried about that element. As you mentioned, the psychological part of us, the thinking processes. And if we approach life and approach health from the perspective, I'm going to get better if I leave it, if I don't do anything, that's the best course of action. So you've already spoken to it, but I'm really concerned about us in that regard, because we don't seem to want to make the right investments in regards to pain, in regards to illness. So with that said, what would you recommend would be a typical diet for somebody who wants to reverse all of these symptoms that you mentioned, like all of the plaque, and like there's somebody in the audience right now who's in the state that you represented. Help us. What do we do as of now?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I pray that anybody that's on the call that is not a member of the Nation of Islam or isn't Muslim, we don't get caught up in that this is a diet just for us. No,
right.
This man that you're listening to today was trained in traditional medicine in America. And I don't consider myself average. I've always wanted and I have been striving to be the best that I can be. So I don't compare myself to other people, but I know that I give my all when people come to me.
Yeah.
And in the years that I practiced medicine, the way that I was trained and filled with propaganda to do from the American medical system, I saw nobody heal. I saw nobody walk their way out of medical problems and start throwing medications in the trash can. I saw nobody walk up out of diabetes and throw the needles in the trash can. But when I started following that book and that divine health plan, I watched every medical problem that you probably have ever heard of. If a person is diligent, dedicated, and they make the sacrifices that are necessary, I've watched them eliminate these medical problems. And so I'm saying that because I don't want religion or a certain, I should say, culture to turn you away.
Yes.
Please understand that what I am offering you today is 28 years of experience. I was not average in their system. I was the best. For those who understand what I'm about to say, I was the chief resident in my residency program.
Right.
When I finished school and started practicing, many of the doctors in Houston would call me.
Right.
When they had diabetes issues. Many of the primary care physicians in Houston used to call me when they couldn't get directly to the cardiologist, because I was that studied and that diligent about making sure I knew that the issues that were affecting the Black community, I wasn't going to be second nature, because I wanted to make sure that when somebody walked through the door of my office, that you were going to be in the best hands than anywhere else that you could go. Again, I'm not comparing myself to other people, but that's the effort I'm going to give you when you walk in the door. So to me, when I started reading How to Eat to Live, and then I started trying to apply it to my life, because I'm not going to be somebody that talks one thing and then you see me do something else. I strive not to be him. I started eating Navy beans every day. At that time in my life, when I started reading How to Eat to Live, I was eating 5 meals a day. I would get up in the morning and work out, and I couldn't even make it most of the time upstairs to the shower. I would have to stop in the kitchen and drink some juice or eat something because I was going to pass out. Eating 5 meals a day doesn't allow your body to store what you need. And so I jumped right into 1 meal a day, started eating Navy beans. Energy level went way up. My cholesterol, when I first started practicing How to Eat to Live, was 360. Within 1 year of eating 1 meal a day, it went down to 140. So I'm not telling you things that is just some ethereal thought or something magical. This plan that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has given to Black people and all people, but it was for Black people initially. Those of us that are attempting to follow it, we look better than all of our peers. We look better than people that are our age. The whiteness of our eyes are whiter than other people that have our same skin color, right? The medical problems go away. And since we're talking about heart health, let me just tell you all a quick testimony. A sister reached out to me about a month ago. In the end of last year, she had a visit with a cardiologist. They did her cholesterol. It was high. They wound up doing a cardiac catheterization, went into her heart, saw that she had 2 almost completely clogged blood vessels on her heart. And they said that there were 2 sections on her heart, like the one I just finished showing you. See, when you go and you do tests, you watch the movement of the heart. And there's a certain expectation that we have of the top part of the heart and the bottom part of the heart. It's supposed to squeeze in a certain way. So when we see something not squeezing correctly, something's wrong with that. Let's look and see what's happening. So she had 2 sections of her heart where the heart muscle wasn't beating correctly. And so they told her, it looks like you have had 2 heart attacks. Wow. She was like, I never knew that. She did the January fast for 3 days. And she was amongst some of her friends. And she said, you know what, every time I do a 3-day fast, I feel so wonderful when I come out of it. I think I'm going to follow what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said and do 1 meal every 3 days. She started in January. She went back and had the test done last month. All of her arteries are completely clear, and her heart has returned to normal. Everything is better than when they first checked it. So what else can I tell you all, right? If I didn't share those type of stories, right? Because you're looking at somebody, as I said, who practiced traditional medicine. I've given people the whole spiel of take a baby aspirin a day, take a statin to get your cholesterol down, take a beta blocker, which will slow down your heart so it's not beating so hard, take a calcium channel blocker so it will decrease your blood pressure, take an ACE inhibitor so that it will make sure that the process of your heart weakening is slowed down. Those are the 5 things that in any doctor, primary or a cardiologist, is going to suggest to anybody with heart disease. They suggest that those medications will give you the best long-term longevity. And I'm here to say that it definitely isn't better than what I just gave you a testimony about. So when you want to do the best for your heart, you have to eat the foods that God suggests. The navy beans is in the Bible. Fruits and vegetables, that's in the Bible, right? The Quran talks about the milk being agreeable to the drinker. So when you listen to these people on social media talking about milk is pus, ignorance. When you listen to these people on social media talking about milk causes cancer, ignorance. They don't know how to evaluate the milk that is being processed incorrectly versus that which is, because we'll never find God telling us a lie. How is it that Allah could say in the Quran that milk is agreeable to the drinker, and then somebody come out in public and say milk causes you cancer? Wow, something's got to be wrong with the person, not what God said. So these foods that are right here, fruits and vegetables, in 2023, no matter where you live in the world, you're going to have to do some research on what is the best food in your region of the world, because there's too many games being played by the enemies of God. You can't afford to put genetically modified organism foods in your body and think that you have the best of health. But it might take some effort for you to go in the backyard or on the windowsill or on the balcony and get a couple of pots and start growing some things that you can trust, right? And like my grandmother, if we start doing that as a community, wherever you live, we'll be able to rely on that and have better health and more longevity because we can trust the things that we're making. Some things are easy to grow and some things take a little more effort. But the effort is what we have to put into in order to be able to say, I can trust what's on my plate. Did I answer the question, my brother?
Phenomenal. You
Right,
over answered. So just before I bring my co-hosts in, before they tender their resignation, if I don't, I just wanted to ask you, if somebody has some of the problems that you mentioned in the hearts and in the arteries, and they're of the mind that, regular hard exercise, like going to the gym every day with those types of complications, will exercise actually exacerbate the problem versus reducing the problem?
Excellent question. In order to answer that so that everybody can see what I'm about to say, I want to put this picture back up if you don't mind. Okay. So let's concentrate on the second and the third picture, right? Again, the heart is over here and whatever other organ, well, we're talking about the heart. So let's specifically talk about the heart and the blood vessels on the heart that feed the heart. If I'm in the gym, running on the treadmill, lifting some weights, doing some other type of cardio or some other type of, exercise, the heart and everything else in the body that is working needs more blood flow. When I'm actively moving, I have to get more blood flow because my work has increased. The waste material has increased. The need for oxygen has increased. So I need more blood flow to get to the vessels on the heart. If I'm clogged, that means this section is going to open up and say, I want some more, but this right here can't open up normally. You see? So this is going to open up and call for more. This is going to try to answer that question, but it's still going to get clogged here. So when you are exercising with a plaque like this or a plaque like this, you increase your chance of having a heart attack. You increase your chance of causing deterioration of the heart. So that, remember I showed the picture of the normal heart and the congested heart? Some people don't even have to have a heart attack. You just strain the heart. Because when you're exercising like we're talking about, and you're not getting enough oxygen, not getting enough blood flow, not getting enough of the nutrients, that heart muscle is being strained. So over time, it's going to get weak and it's going to become a congestive heart failure problem. And then we're talking about getting weaker and weaker and weaker into a point where life is not sustainable. So my suggestion to everybody that has any type of a heart condition is Yes, you can reverse that, but stop thinking that you can solve a problem overnight. Heart problems, medical problems in general, do not happen when you got diagnosed. If you went to see a cardiologist last week and they told you your ejection fraction is low and some of your blood vessels are clogged and your heart is not functioning and beating in the rhythm that they want it to, well, it probably took many, many years for you to get to that place. So just understand that taking your time and having a methodical program is what's going to take you in the opposite direction. The best exercise we are taught is walking. And that's where I tell everybody to start. If you're 50, you shouldn't get out and start trying to run 5 miles, because when you walk to the track, you see other people running 5 miles, you might die on that track.
Right.
But go out there and walk. And when your body starts to tell you you're tired, stop and get some rest. And calculate, how many steps was that? How far did I go? Okay, I walked a half a mile. Good. If that's where you started getting tired, walk a half a mile every day for a couple of weeks and don't try to exceed that. Your body's telling you that's your limit.
Right.
So just do what your body is saying is good, and then continue to do the things that we're talking about eating the right foods, making sure that you're not eating multiple meals, because if you're eating multiple meals, let me just paint the picture. I wake up this morning, I had pancakes, some eggs, some sausage, and some orange juice. Probably going to take about 8 to 10 hours to digest that food. It was 7 o'clock, 12 o'clock, I'm eating another meal. So I didn't even finish digesting the first meal. I didn't get anything out of it, even though what I said was worthless nutrients anyway. But let's say that you did eat something good for lunch, right? You had some navy beans, you had a piece of fish, you had some vegetables. That's going to take approximately 6 to 8 hours to digest. So 12 o'clock, now I'm at home at 6 and I'm getting ready to eat again. You haven't even finished digesting, absorbing, nor placing into the body the nutrients from the food from your lunch. And now you're sitting down and eating dinner. So I hope that makes sense. Why it makes sense that we don't need to eat multiple meals as adults. So if you're eating just one meal, you would digest it right first. Then you would extract those nutrients. And then the nutrients are going to be sent to the body. The heart is calling for nutrients because it wants to do what? Strengthen this heart muscle, maybe clear some things. And if you give your body the time, and then you keep that exercise to just that half a mile, in 2 weeks, you will notice that your body has improved. In 2 weeks, you might be able to walk 3/4 of a mile now. You might be able to go the whole mile, but keep listening to your body. When the body says, I'm tired, give it some rest and slowly build yourself up like we have to do in every other aspect of life. Nothing happens overnight. Every person that's successful takes a step and keeps moving in that direction. And that's the same thing we need to do when we're trying to move in the direction of improving our health. And the last point on that note is, these pictures that I'm showing you today, brothers and sisters, let's not have the mentality like the medical community of the world is trying to impress upon us, that you can have a problem with one organ in the body. If your blood vessels look like that on your heart, they look like that on your kidneys and your muscles and your spleen and your pancreas and your brain. Because you can't have a medical problem in one part of a body that works as a unit. This body works just like the universe. If there were some shift in Mars, everything else in the universe is going to be shifted. If there's something going wrong with one organ in the body, the whole body is suffering because they all are in need of each other. We know you take the heart out of a person, they're not going to live. You know, if you take the brain out of a person, you can't live. But also, if you take the kidneys out, it's just a matter of time. Take the pancreas out, it's just a matter of time. So all of these organs work intertwined. And that's why I always say, we're talking about vitality. If a man is not able to get an erection, that's not just a sign that something's wrong in his reproductive organs. There's something wrong all over his body. And if your mind stays on that function of just to be able to have sex, you're going to die in a very short period of time. But if you look at that as a sign that your entire body is in trouble and start doing things that can take you in the right direction, as you see your ability sexually improve, your whole body is improving as well. So just a way to look at it, instead of looking at it like the medical community says, oh, you have a heart problem or you have a kidney problem. It's the whole body that's in trouble. It's just one organ that is showing it the most.
Fantastic. Well, I'm done. So Sister, Sister Tara, please.
Oh my goodness, brilliant answers. I love
Praise
how you
God.
connected everything. I just want to ask, I'm glad you mentioned heart failure, because when I think of heart failure, I automatically thought it meant heart attack. So what are the differences when you think about, and I know it has something to do with the blood vessel. So you have a heart attack, you have cardiac arrest, then you have heart failure. How they're all different things. So what would be the way that they happen? Is heart failure something that's a long-term thing? Like how will we define that? I can't even wrap my mind around it, because when I think of heart attack, I'm thinking they're all the same thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Mhm.
Excuse me. So let's go back to a couple of pictures. I think it will help. Excuse me, just in case anybody else has the same question. So down here at the bottom, right?
Mhm.
Your heart is pumping. And then all of a sudden this happens. The blood vessel's completely clogged. So now there's a section of this muscle, let's say it's right here,
Okay.
and that section now is not getting blood flow. That section starts to not function, and then it starts to die. That is a heart attack. That's a myocardial infarction. A section of your heart is not receiving adequate blood flow, no nutrients, no oxygen, so it can't function anymore and it starts to die. That's a heart attack, a myocardial infarction, right?
Okay.
Now, a myocardial infarction or a heart attack in the appropriate place in your heart can cause you to have cardiac arrest, which means what? That section of the heart also had some of the nerves that supply the whole heart. And let me go to a picture and show that specifically. You all can see my pointer pretty good, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the first node in the heart is up here in the top. And so it sends out a signal. And that signal goes down into the heart and up into the sides, right? And then, like I said, there's another one. There's another one right here. This signals, tells that one, send the signal out into the heart muscle so it knows when to beat, right? Again, nothing happens in the human body that isn't signaled from the brain and told what to do. So if I have a heart attack and I'm right in this area where those signals are coming out, no signals coming out, I'm in cardiac arrest. What happened? My heart stopped working. Cardiac arrest. You see what I'm saying? It was stopped from doing what it's supposed to do. So a heart attack can cause that. Like we're talking about Bronny, inflammation of his heart can irritate that and make it stop functioning, go into cardiac arrest. And then, as you said, this here congestive heart failure or a weakened heart is something that happens over a long period of time. This heart that we're looking at right here is a heart that when I've seen them in person, whether we're going in the chest or looking at them on imaging study, this is 30, 40 years of damage, sometimes more before a heart will look like this. You see what I mean? So this heart is so weak, those signals are having a hard time getting through there to tell the heart to pump. So what happens? They just stop working, cardiac arrest. So cardiac arrest is usually the end result of a cardiac problem where the heart just can't function as it does. And so when it stops beating, when it stops working, you're in cardiac arrest. You are literally dead. And if you're not revived within a certain period of time, it's a done deal, time for a janaza.
Wow. Okay,
Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. It's very matter of fact. Thank you. Thank you for that. I'll
Dr. Akili.
go ahead to you, Sister Savina, because not right now. I'm trying to process all this information.
As you two are trying to figure out who should speak next.
No, she's
Lost the
next.
question.
Don't try to come in. She ready. She's ready.
So you left the door open.
So Dr.
But I'll
Akili,
defer back to you, Sister Sylvina.
thank you. So Dr. Akili, thank you for your breakdown. Totally fulfills the brief. And I know that everyone who came on today, who was fortunate enough to follow their mind to come on today, have definitely been well informed thus far.
Praise God.
You mentioned 5 different traditional, I would like to say remedies, but they're not actually remedies, options that that may be offered, to you once you go to the traditional doctor. And those, I got 4 of them: ACE inhibitor, beta blocker, stint, and aspirin. I don't know what the other one was.
Statin. Did you say statin?
I said stint. Is it statin? That's what I
Statin. Yeah, that's like the Lipitor or the Crestor, things like that.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, so they want to, number one,
right.
The picture that I showed here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go back to this so I can make sure this makes sense. This here is a blood clot that is forming.
Right.
So it's only showing red blood cells here, but in blood, we have plasma, we have platelets. Platelets are the ones that do the most work on trying to stop bleeding. So they are the initiators of a clot, right? So in this situation right here, in a human being, there would be a lot of platelets that would be gathering here. Because what is the body saying? Something major happened. The reason why this is blocked off is because it's something is bleeding on the other end. So the body's looking at it. We have to wall this off. So you start making a blood clot here, right? So that's the first thing they do when they're giving you so-called therapies to keep you from having a heart attack, or if you're in the process of having a heart attack, they give you aspirin because it does what? It's a platelet inhibitor. So you're keeping the platelets from causing a larger or a more in-depth blood clot than this blockage right here. You see? So that's what they suggest first, is an aspirin tablet to try to keep from there being a blood clot that's going to continue to grow. The second thing is they want to slow down the heart, right? Because anytime a person's heart is in trouble, you want to try to decrease how much work is being done. So typically they're going to put you on a beta blocker, which slows down the heart, right? Again, the ACE inhibitor is a blood pressure medication, but they use it for the heart because it's also supposed to help with the functioning of the heart and making the beats a little more solid, so that when you slow down the heart, that you're still getting enough blood flow pumped out, right? The statin is supposed to help decrease your cholesterol or remove what's producing that plaque that we just looked at, right? And then the 5th medicine, man, I got myself accused. Oh, calcium channel blocker is usually to try to bring the blood pressure down. So those are supposedly the 5 medications in a person with heart disease that is supposed to give them more longevity, right? So again, when we put things in context, we're talking about a medical system that's talking about maybe giving you another 5 to 10 years. But that sister that I mentioned that renewed her heart, right? The thing that I must say here is that when we start having time in between our meals, and let's specifically talk about her, she's a vegetarian, which means that she takes approximately 6 hours to digest her meals. So if she's eating every 72 hours, then that means that is 64 hours after she finishes digesting. So I would say probably another 6, maybe 8 hours she's absorbing and putting her nutrients into her body. But now she literally has 60 hours or 58 hours to just relax and rest. Typically, after we finish digesting, absorbing and putting the nutrients into the body, approximately 10 to 12 hours after that, we start making stem cells. We go through the process of increased growth hormone. which in children would help you grow. In adults, it's improving the repair of the body. And then we go to autophagy, which is what? The environmental cleanup, right? Recycling. That cell is old, tired, not functioning well. We're going to get rid of it. Oh, but those ribosomes are good. Oh, that something is good in that. So let's keep that and get rid of the rest. That's what the body goes. And the longer we fast, the more that happens. It becomes, if I remember correctly, about 300% at about 24 hours fasting. But then we start making stem cells. What is a stem cell? A brand new cell, like it's producing in that baby inside of the mother's womb. So you have a brand new cell that hasn't been differentiated, hasn't been told what to do yet. So if there's something, well, I specifically talk about that sister, the damaged part of her heart, her body said, take that stem cell, put it in her heart, replace one of those old cells. So we start that about 12 hours after we finish with the food. So she is literally having approximately 50 plus hours where she's in that stage. What's wrong? Oh, let's go fix it. What's wrong? Well, hey, you're not doing a good job. You got to go. Right. And by the way, here's a brand new cell. We'll put that over there. Go put that in that organ. Right. Because I tell people all the time, God's wisdom is so superior than us that we can do everything right. We can do all the good things, but his priority is going to happen. There might be something wrong in your body you don't even know. Right. Let's say we're concerned about the heart. I had a heart attack last week. Well, there's something in your brain that's about to take you off the planet in a second. So you're doing all this good. Again, patience, right? You're doing all this good, but the wisdom of the God we serve is fixing the brain. And then it's going to get to your heart, because that's the priority that this beautiful body that we've been given has its ability to do. It's a lot smarter than we are.
Thank you.
Did I answer the question?
Yeah, more than. We've got 2 questions in the chat. But,
before you go to that, I just wanted to ask Dr. Akili, if somebody's eating one meal every 3 days, one meal every other day, or even one meal per day, and someone's coming off of eating 3 times a day, and they have a certain regime, you know, they're ripping and rolling, their workout regime is a certain way, you know, what kind of working out, like for somebody who pumps weights and does spin classes and martial arts, you know, different thing every day, maybe for 5 days, what kind of exercise can one do that will give you the type of stimulation that you may get from some of these other hardcore things that one may do to compensate for other things? What would you recommend, or how much would somebody have to give up in order to adapt or adopt a diet of 1 meal a day, 1 meal every other day, 1 meal every 3 days? What's the trade-off?
That's a good question. You know, the reality is that when I told the story about when I was eating 5 meals a day, when I went down to 1 meal a day, my stamina went up. My strength went up. And it was the same thing when I went from 1 meal a day to 1 meal every day, 1 meal every other day, which is what I'm striving to do now. I literally, if I ate the right foods, most importantly, from an energy perspective, navy beans, in my experiment with myself, navy beans gives me the greatest amount of energy. So when I would have a good amount of navy beans, I typically work out on my fast days. So like yesterday I ate, today would be my day that I would exercise, right? Because on my fast day, my energy level is not going to be as high tomorrow, which is my eat day during the day before I eat, than it was on the day I'm fasting, right? So I would say, again, you know, each person would have to kind of pay attention to their body, right? Because everybody's different, even though we have many similarities. But what I have noticed is that as people go from multiple meals to 1 meal a day and continue going down that track to 1 meal every 3 days, the energy level is up, mental clarity is up. But physically, of course, you're going to start to run out of energy because you're going so long in between meals. But I still think that each person has to kind of look at what works for them. But in general, especially as people age, I suggest walking. especially out in nature, right? Where you can smell the aromas, you can have some of the beautiful sights that God has put out here for our mental health. When you're breathing those certain aromas and you're looking at the things that he put, they are to help us. So that's my suggestion. And then the other suggestion typically is yoga. You
I was
can
just
literally
about to get to that. I was gonna,
yeah, you can
the
literally
next
do
question
yoga.
was, what part does yoga play? Particularly once we start to mature a little more and don't need to beat everybody up in the gym.
Yes. Again, each person has to be comfortable with what they do. I mean, I've had people look at my work and they'd be like, "Damn, what you trying to do? Make the Olympics?" No, I just want to keep my body in a sense that I feel confident that I can take care of myself, take care of my family if some type of situation arises,
Right.
or like the weather incidents that we're watching all over the earth. I have no idea what I'm going to wind up getting into, but I don't want to be one of those men. Like I was watching this show yesterday. Man, these people are standing on the side of the road and the flood waters are going, and this dude is going down the street in the flood. I mean, you can't help that person. You know what I mean? The water's moving 15 miles an hour. That water will take you with it. That person's in trouble.
Yeah.
So I work out to try to keep my mind in a place where I feel like I cannot wind up like that. But my point is that everybody maybe doesn't have that as a goal. So understand that just like I talked about looking in nature, there are not any animals that just sit all day other than us.
Right.
So some type of activity has to be in your life because this body was made to move. When you're walking, if you're not walking like you're on a stroll, if you're walking to get your heart rate up and to breathe a little deeper, you're working every part of your body. So that's an excellent exercise, and you don't have all of the pounding like some of the other things we're talking about. But even if you want to do more strenuous activities, the longer periods of time in between meals, the right type of foods, you can heal whatever damage you do when you exercise. But my suggestion to most sedentary people is get a walking regimen. Like I said earlier, just increase it slowly until you get to whatever your goal is. And then do yoga about 2 or 3 times a week, because I have not seen an exercise that helps send blood flow to the areas of the body that don't get a lot because we are so sedentary. And I also haven't seen an exercise that helps keep the body limber and keeps pain away like yoga. So I would suggest those 2 exercises as we age and as people are getting into a more sedentary lifestyle. But, those of you who don't have any restrictions, do what is comfortable to you and do it in a way that you don't injure yourself, right? Because that's the other aspect of sometimes going to the gym and doing more strenuous exercises, including martial arts, is there's always a propensity for injury. And then now you have to get on the cycle of, okay, let me heal this and then rehab myself back to the ability to exercise. And so that's always the inclusion when you start to get to more strenuous exercise.
Fantastic. Thank you, brother.
Yes, sir.
So, Dr. Akili, the questions we're kind of getting now are going down the route of consultation type of questions. And I know that we're providing high quality information. However, one would need, full consultation before, taking on any drastic measures. But the general principles can be followed independently. So I'm going to ask this question tentatively from an informational point of view, not that you're giving any specific medical advice for anyone to follow.
Yes.
So the question is asking if somebody has taken on any of the 5 main drugs or I don't want to say remedies, but offerings and that traditional medicine would put forward. Is there a way that how would you recommend loosely that one could transition from those interventions to a more holistic way that you have mentioned with regards to our diet, etc.?
Well, let me be frank from the perspective that there's no question in my mind that I'm being monitored
right
in America. And so I have to be very careful with the things that I say, because I can be attacked, which I have been before, for doing things like this and saying certain things. So I'm going to put my website up, and if you have any specific questions on your health specifically, please reach out to me. This is my website here, theultimatewellnessgroup.com. And the number to contact me, all of my social media, you can send messages directly through the website. You can contact me through there, but it would be best for me to speak for anybody that has specific questions about yourself. It would be best for me to speak based on actual facts.
Yes.
I don't like to talk in public settings specifically to a person, because it doesn't do you justice, right? The things that I'm saying today are based on my experience, based on my study, based on my research, based on things that I've done within myself. But to answer your question specifically about your medication and how you wound up there and how we go in the right direction, I would need to get actual facts about you. And then I think I could help answer your question in the most legitimate way. And I think that's the best way to handle it. So if there are any personal questions, please reach out to me.
Thank you. Do you want to take the last question?
Yeah, in just winding down, because Dr. Akili has done us a great service this evening, and I don't want our evening to turn into some kind of medical situation where we think that we're sitting down around a campfire in Africa somewhere, and we invoke the spirits of the ancestors and everything's going to be okay in the morning. This is not that kind of thing, because what's so beautiful about what you're saying, Dr. Akili, because most of us are about instant remedies, like now fix it here. So if you say, okay, eat with a prescription rather than take tablets, because everybody wants to continue with their daily regime. I want to stop doing anything. But if I can pop some pills and continue what I'm doing, then that's the best case scenario. But if somebody prescribes for us, stop eating all of the things that's making you sick, it would seem quite standard and basic. But I think our minds have gone so far to the left that that which is basic information, you ate this makes you sick. Stop eating it. No, I want to eat that. I like it. Okay. So we're not going to stop until our bodies adjust and, our stomachs stop hurting us. We're not going to stop. So if you're advising, okay, stop eating this, stop eating that, and somebody asked the question, how do you eat one meal a day and manage the loss of weight? Isn't the idea to lose the weight?
Yes.
Like, why do we think the weight that we currently are, that is healthy? Like, because help me with this, Dr. Akili. Why isn't it that many of these questions that we may ask, are we actually capable of answering them ourselves, or is it that we make things more complicated by sometimes framing a question because we're looking for an answer that is designed to allow us to maintain our lifestyle or the way in which we live, and we're looking for an answer that will perpetuate such. Are you following where I'm coming from?
Absolutely. Yes, sir. And I'll be honest, I definitely deal with that on a regular basis. I have a show that I do every Tuesday, and many of the questions that people have asked me over the years, I start to gain insight sometimes in knowing that question, I mean, why the hell did you ask that? You know what I mean? But, in all honesty, my suggestion to everybody when they meet me is I'm not the person to come to if you're looking for some magical quick fix. I'm not that person. Go on about your business, because the people that work with me and have produced results put in the work. And one of the aspects of work is that you have to work here first. Because in the book, How to Eat to Live, that beautiful book right there, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad talks about eating the right foods, fasting. If you're not thinking correctly, none of that will serve the purpose as well as it could. And so we have to understand that this reality of getting a diagnosis of high blood pressure or diabetes or this problem or that problem, typically we say in medicine that when you are diagnosed with a chronic problem, that problem probably started 20 to 30 years before you got the diagnosis. And yet you will let a person write a prescription and give you a tablet that is an a such and such blocker, a such and such inhibitor. I don't care what organ we're talking about. That's what the medical system does. They give you stuff that stops certain systems in your body. Now, how in the hell can we think that something's going to work well for you when you're looking at a finite mind and an ignorant mind, but the infinite mind put that system in your body to work and do something, and you're going to let this finite mind give you a pill to stop that process, and you just made a good decision to take a pill after 30 years of ignorance, 30 years of bad decisions? That doesn't make sense when I put it in that context. And so I'm sure that when I speak to adults, and I would just say for the sake of this conversation, let's say as soon as you finish your teenage years, I don't know anybody that's an adult that doesn't know they should be doing something for their health. Well, why are you not doing it? I know I should be drinking more water. I know I should eat more fruits and vegetables. I know I eat too much meat. I know I don't exercise enough. Well, hell, you don't have to come ask Dr. Akili that question. You already said it to your doggone self. That's where you should start. And if you don't start there, then you're really playing games with yourself, because it's not going to hurt me to ask me a silly question, you know, because again, as I said, and I'm not saying any of this to be vitriolic or to put anybody down, but that's where all of us have to start. Each one of us have to look in the mirror and say, are you willing to put in the work that it takes to look like what you think you're supposed to look like? Because you don't even know if that's supposed to be. Many of us have gone to the gym, or many of us have been in public. And as men, I know most Black men that I know do this. You're in public, you look at another man, you're like, damn, I wonder if my chest is that big. I wonder if my arms are like that, right? Now, we're probably going to say anything in public because we still have that foolishness. That's gay or that's homosexual, right? And again, it's not to make anybody that is in that lifestyle feel bad. I'm just talking about what we do sometimes because that's the way we came up. But that is a vain reality, to look at another person and say, I want my body to look like that. You don't know if that's possible. But having gratitude for what God has given us, you get yourself doing the things that you already know you should be doing. And then try to find good sources of information where you can clean up your diet, improve your diet, and get an exercise program that fits your lifestyle and fits your reality, and then let things occur the way they're supposed to occur. Because your chest might not supposed to be as big as that dude that's across the way in the gym.
That's the conclusion I've come to, Doctor.
Hey, you work out for the rest of your life, and your chest is still gonna be smaller than it is. I can work out all my life, and I'm not gonna be able to jump as high as Michael Jordan. I've already come to that conclusion. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I've just decided to get an avatar. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I'm very serious when I mean that everybody has to find a little meditation time. You know, look at yourself.
Yeah.
And find the plan that works for you. And if you need help with your plan, of course, I'm here, or maybe you know other people that can help you, but make sure that you are the one that's in control. I say this all the time. When you go to a doctor's office, stay in control. Same way you would do if you went to a car dealership.
Right.
When I go to a car dealership, I tell them from jump, hey, look, I don't come here try to sell me nothing. As soon as you start talking, I'm going to turn around and walk away. I'm going to ask you questions. And if you can answer my questions, we can have a conversation. Right. I do that when my wife and I go anywhere to buy something. I don't want to be sold to. I don't want you to market to me.
Right.
And that's what the medical community has done. They've marketed to us.
Right.
And we do not see the benefits of their marketing. Your
Right.
mother, she was sick. She died still taking those medications. Grandma, auntie, uncle, grandpa, same situation. They have not proven that their marketing strategy to us works at all. So why are we still listening? You see what I'm saying? So stay in control. If you have to go to a doctor, it's not a knock on you. If you are taking medications right now, it's not a knock on you, but make sure when you go to that facility to get your refills or to see this physician, learn how to stay in control.
Yeah.
No, sir, I don't want any more medicine. No, ma'am, I'm not interested in any more pills. Can you help me with my eating habits? Can you help me understand on how I can start to solve some of these problems? And then be very astute in listening to the answers. And if you've sat down and you've come up with a plan for yourself that you want to go in a direction of healing and solving problems, and that's not what you hear coming out of their mouth, you're in the wrong place. Stay in control, get up and walk out, find somebody else, find a different system. There are too many options, right? And then again, I know in some countries, because I don't know where everybody that's on is from, but I know in some countries you don't necessarily have the same things that we have here in America, but that doesn't mean that you use America as your foundation. You know where you live. Take the time to research and learn. So my wife and I just had this conversation this morning. We live in Macon, Georgia. Atlanta is an hour away. In order to get some quality things, we drive to Atlanta. And so we talked this morning about how frequent we're going to start doing that. And I also said I'm going to have to do some more research on some of the food co-ops in Middle Georgia. But if we have to travel an hour a couple of times a month in order to get the quality foods that are going to keep my life intact and keep my healing going and keep us being able to look at the book and live like he says we can live, right? Because he said if you eat one meal a day of the right foods, you will live to 140. He never said at what age to start. What guarantee have you gotten from any doctor that you go to that you can live to 140, right? Because right after that statement, he says, if you eat one meal every other day, you'll live that much longer. Didn't even put a number on it, but it's longer than 140. How many people do we know of that have lived that long? Oldest person I've ever known in my life was my grandmother, 110. And I told my family, I'm sure she could live to 150, but they thought I was crazy like most people. But my point is, let's stay in control. Let's look at what are our options. And if we always want convenience, you'll conveniently die early.
My grandmother lived to 103 in Brooklyn, New York, in a concrete jungle, and again, I thought about that. If she was in Jamaica, if she was in the Caribbean, she definitely mastered something, but she was in a concrete jungle. Yes. So I just want to say to somebody who asked the question in the chat, in regards to losing weight, if you do one meal every other day or one meal a day, am I right to say, Dr. Akili, because this is what happened to me. I lost weight when I started eating one meal a day, and then I put that weight back on, like my body as if it went through a transformation, and then it found its equilibrium, and it wasn't far off where I originally was. Is that right to say that yes, you may lose weight in the beginning, but your body will come to its natural weight after a period of time?
Absolutely. The superior doctor told us that, not this doctor that you're listening to today. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said that if you go from multiple meals to one meal a day, in about 2 weeks, you'll lose weight, and then your weight will come back to its normalcy. So yes, that is actually what I experienced and many other people. But I also want to just talk about, just quickly, if I can, about weight. And everybody has to understand that weight is not always exactly what you think it is, right? It's not only fat. Many of us have weight that some of it is water weight because you don't drink enough water. And so your body is holding on to water. You see it as swelling in your feet, swelling in your lower legs, or you see it as your whole face is swollen, your hands are swollen when you wake up in the morning. your body isn't being flushed correctly. So many times when we're talking about losing weight, there are a lot of factors to that. And the reality is that, again, I had somebody reach out to me yesterday. The person is 400 plus pounds. And he wanted me to talk to him about losing weight and getting his diabetes under control. And I said, brother, you're not ready to talk about losing weight and getting your diabetes under control. That would be a waste of our time, because if we don't deal with here, whatever we do, you're not going to be able to implement it well, or you won't be able to stick with it. We're going to have to deal with this first. And so anybody that's overweight, if you look at yourself when you were 18, 19, or 20, and you weighed 150 pounds, and now you weigh 350, you've gained 200 pounds. What happened? What caused you to be addicted to food like that? What allowed you to not stop after the second set of clothes you bought? I'm not trying to be funny, and I'm not trying to put anybody down. I'm talking about a mentality that if you do not attack what caused that, you are not going to solve the problem. So we have to stop concentrating on how much I weigh, how much you weigh. I don't care how big you are. You have to concentrate on the psychological, emotional issues that caused you to lose control. And until you regain control, you can tell people whatever you want to. Just go do a little research on The Biggest Losers, that television show that they do over here in America. That probably is all over the world now. 87%, if I remember the numbers correctly, 87% of the people that lost all that weight and looked so good on that damn TV have gained almost all of it back. And that's been my experience. Almost every woman and man that I've seen in my career that gain weight and then lose it in these foolish ways, you're going to gain it back. Why? Because the most important aspect is, why did you not stop yourself? When you saw the problem beginning, when you knew your belly was hanging over your clothes, when you knew it feels like your head's going to pop when you bend down to tie your shoes, or you got to a point in your life. Again, I'm not trying to be funny. I'm being realistic in what we have to attack. You can't even wash yourself in the shower. You sometimes can't even get in your shower. You're embarrassed to go and get in people's cars because the whole car leaning. I've had this happen. I had a sister sit in my car one day, and the whole car started to lean while she was getting in it. And once she got into the car, she started making all these little comments. I said, sister, we need to do something about that. I don't want to hear all those little statements that you're making. I don't feel sorry for you. Feeling sorry for you is not going to help you.
Right.
But if you're interested in us doing something, if you're interested in Brother Akili helping you with that, I will help you. But I'm not going to sit and play games with somebody as if making, oh, well, it's okay. No, it ain't okay. And I'm not talking about my car. I'm talking about you and the difficulty factor that it took you to get into this car. That's not okay. It's not okay for you to continue to live like that every day, and the impression that you're putting on your children. And the fact that you literally are killing yourself with a spoon and a fork and your hands and a cup. If we don't address it like that, you see, I don't want to come across callous, but I do want to come across effective. You understand what I'm saying? When I first got into medicine, I couldn't talk like this. I was insecure myself. But I know after the many years that I've been doing this, you got to be straight up with people.
Right.
You've got to tell people the truth, and you've got to say it in a very frank way, knowing that it's coming from a place of love. Because I didn't say anything that I said out of hate, dislike, or vitriol. Everything that I'm saying is I hope that somebody that's listening is going to do something today, tomorrow, by the end of this week, so that you start taking your health in a different direction. I don't care if you never reach out to me. If you have other people that you can go to, or you have a plan already, may God bless you. But you have to be serious with yourself. And don't let this world, social media, medical industry, fool you if they can't show you honest results that match the way you think. Find somebody that thinks the way you think and that is in conjunction with your life and who you believe in and how you believe, and start putting in the work, and it will be worth all the blood, sweat, and tears. I promise you.
Fantastic. Somebody just put in the text, this is a wake-up call.
Mhm.
So,
Praise God.
so with that said, Dr. Akili, it's been a delight, an honor, privilege, and a pleasure. And all who were blessed to be on live via Facebook or in the Zoom room, you got blessed this evening. You got blessed. And it's wonderful because we have a 3-day fast coming up next week. So some of you want to join with some of us online. We're going to stop eating next week, Thursday. We're going to lock it off. And we're not going to eat anything on Friday. We're not going to eat anything on Saturday, but we will eat on Sunday. Okay? And those of you who don't have any beans, go order yourself some haricot beans. And those of you who don't have the book, How to Eat to Live, put a 1 in the chat and your details, and we will organize for you to get such book. Or you can go straight to Amazon and you can order it on Amazon. You don't have to wait for us. You can order it. But if you put your 1 in the chat, we will get you the books, okay? Because it came from God himself. So if God has given us a diet, then we just have to have the courage to accept what God gave us, knowing our prognosis, okay, as a people, and knowing what we've been through. So let's all take our devices off mute and let's give our special guest and our wonderful Dr. Akili a big, well-deserved round of applause.
Thank you.
Oh,
man.
Thank
you,
brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you so much.
Very good information, brother.
Thank so much.
And you too.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, sir,
Thank
as
you.
always.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you for the opportunity. I pray that what I presented was pleasing to the God that we serve. I pray that the information that I gave you empowered you and get you on the road to becoming a better you. You know, if it wasn't for the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in that book, How to Eat to Live, I would have been suggesting that you all get a booster shot. So I can't take the credit. So thank you again. It was an honor and a blessing. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you to my co-host, Sister Tara, Sister Sylvina. Thank you very, very much for making this real, making this happen. To all of you who distributed tickets, we appreciate you.